We all have our demons.
Not enough pain.
What's up, guys? It's Kale here with another video for YouTube, and this one is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to take an actual short video, not like yesterday's where I said short and then went almost 25 minutes. It's going to be real short, about 10. That's what I'm aiming for. Let's do it. Patreon. By now, if you're a creature of the internet, I'm sure you've heard that Patreon has changed their business model away from what it currently is, which is pledgers, or patrons rather, better term, committing a fixed amount to a creator, and then the creator having fees taken out of the total they receive, and instead they've put the fees onto the patron, charging a 2.9% payment processing fee plus a 35-cent fee on top of that. Now, this doesn't add up to very much money, but that's not really the point. So what Patreon and other crowdfunding services like Kickstarter or Indiegogo really do is they're a great model for indie creators. The strength of these platforms is in making patrons not think about the investment and making creators not think about how to get paid regularly and reliably. That's the service they provide, and to this point, Patreon has been a pretty good source of income for independent creators. So with this change, what basically changes is in the past, creators would have to account for a 5% cut to Patreon and up to a 5% payment processing fee out of their total. It usually broke down per pledge, so it was variable because it depended on how the size of pledges, the volume of pledges, all that kind of stuff. But usually, if you're planning it, basically, you would account for probably about 10% in total. With this now, as a creator, you only have to account for Patreon's cut of 5%. So basically, when someone says, I pledge $1, you get $1 of that minus 5%. So it's the same every month. The problem that this creates is that for a lot of people, the strength of Patreon and platforms like it is the ability to support a lot of creators with very small amounts of money. There are dozens, probably hundreds actually, of independent creators, maybe even thousands at this point. I don't know. There are so many independent creators that thrive off of a large number of people giving very small sums of money. Almost, I can't remember if I've seen this recently or not, but the last time I heard it, I think it's actually a majority of your small money donors actually make up the bulk of contributions on these platforms. This is not just for Patreon. Kickstarter has sort of the same thing. The incentive of lots of small pledges is that they add up very, very quickly. So at this point now, pledging now requires a bit of thought. Your $1 pledge is now $1.38. Your 10 $1 pledges now cost an extra $3.80 a month, which, okay, is not that big of a change. And theoretically, this is Patreon's angle I'm about to spew here. Theoretically, this is better for creators because they have a more reliable and stable paycheck. There is some merit to that. There absolutely is a small amount of merit to that idea. The problem comes in when we look at the fact that making any of this take this much thought on the part of a patron drives them away. Now, I've been on both sides of this equation. I've been a patron. I support OSW Review. That's where all these lovely wrestling-themed things come from, as I almost knock out my Warglaives. And I've also been a creator on both Kickstarter and Patreon. I crowdfunded a novel on Kickstarter successfully, and I attempted to crowdfund a writing career in fiction on Patreon unsuccessfully. If you're a good creator, it's a business. You account for fees, you account for percentage cuts of the money that you plan on receiving, and you do cost analysis and you try to figure out what the bottom line is. If you offer somebody a benefit at a $1 pledge, can you afford to deliver that? If you offer benefits at a $5 pledge, can you afford that? If the answer is no, then you haven't done your work right. That's really what this gets to the heart of. creates this artificial barrier for patrons to provide money by making them think about dollars and cents. Rather than pledging a nice round number, $1, $5, $10, it's now $1.38 or $6 and some change for that $5 pledge, or, you know, $11 or $12. It doesn't scale up like that. That's not how math works. Anyways, wow. I've been putting in some attempts on Argus tonight. That's what's going on. So this change overall has been rolled out pretty shittily. Patreon didn't advance communicate this. They say they've been focus testing this with a few creators and patrons. Personally, as both a creator and a patron on the platform during the time they were testing, I find that hard to believe. I didn't hear any rumblings. I didn't see anything. There were no tech news stories about it. And the announcement that they were switching over just happened this week, and it has driven both patrons and creators away from the platform. Now, as I said earlier, the strength in a crowdfunding platform is on both sides. It allows patrons to get connected to projects they care about and to easily provide their money without having to think excessively about the investment or how to get it to the creator. And it's very beneficial to the creator because you don't have to think about how to get paid regularly and reliably. You just have to plan for what percentage of the dollar amount you see on a dashboard in Patreon is going to come to you and adjust for that accordingly. Now, at the end of the day, there's been a lot of rumors about why this might be. The speculation I've seen has basically suggested that Patreon just closed some rounds of venture capital financing. It assessed a valuation that's far above what you might expect given their average revenue. And so it looks like it may be an investor play. They're trying to make more profit. They're doing this by basically putting the highest possible payment processing charge, because yes, I have looked at their processor fees separately through a company called Stripe. And they're basically putting the highest tier of fees from that provider onto patrons, and then still taking their 5% cut on the other side. Now, since it's still being processed through Patreon, the reality is they're probably not getting charged the maximum rate for transactions through Stripe. They generate enough volume of transactions and enough small volume and enough mixed volume too. There are large dollar patrons as well. Personally, my Patreon had a whopping 3 pledges. $1 a month, one $15 one a month, and one $20 one a month. So there you go. A good mix of variety and a good difference in processing fees and effort. So at the end of the day, this change just makes the platform a lot harder to endorse. It makes it a lot harder to use, and it makes it a lot more unfriendly because not only is it this change directly that causes a problem, but this now creates the perception that what other changes could Patreon roll out without focus testing, without mass user approval and buy-in? What else could they do and roll out that would affect your income? The problem of these platforms as a creator is that if you invest too heavily in one and then they screw you over like this, you don't get a lot of options. The pragmatic consumer thing to do is to quit the platform, go somewhere else. And right now, Patreon is probably picking the worst possible time to do this, given that PayPal has been making murmurs in that direction, and a lot of Twitch streamers use PayPal already for donations. So it already is a robust platform with a lot of users and a lot of support. Kickstarter, another very popular crowdfunding site, is rolling out their drip system, which functions pretty much identically to what Patreon is, or was rather, pre-change. And then there's also services like Coffee, where you can chip in the cost of a cup of coffee and give somebody a little bit of money for producing a creative work or product that you really particularly enjoy. So I don't necessarily think this is the end of Patreon. I do think there are a lot of people that are very heavily invested in the platform. And so it's difficult to see a future where everybody drops it and it becomes 0% adoption rate in the face of this change. But they're picking a really poor time to do it. A lot of Patreons are small enough, and those campaigns can just as easily be folded up and converted over to a different platform. It's a pain in the ass for the creator, but at the end of the day, if I was still on Patreon as an active creator, I would be making that switch. I mean, of course, my patrons were my best friend, my girlfriend, and my parents. So, I mean, realistically, I could probably just like drive to their houses once a month. And in the case of the girlfriend, I don't have to do that at all. So it's hard to argue that that would be, you know, bad for a person like me in that situation. But, you know, in the case of my Kickstarter for my original novel, like, the success there was that I was able to reach far and wide. I had donations here from Reno, Nevada. I had donations from Texas from people I'd never met and still haven't and don't know. I had a donation from someone in Tokyo named Pineapple Steak. So, I mean, these platforms allow creators to reach a diverse and massive audience. And their only real advantage in the market is how unannoying they are. Patreon has pissed off and annoyed a lot of people this week with their change. And it's hard to say that even if they were to completely revert that change and indicate they were never going to do it, it's hard to imagine that some of the damage done would ever be salvaged. The cat's out of the bag. It's done. So I'd be very curious to hear what you have to say about this. I know this is not a typical gaming topic, but feel free to leave some comments down in the comment area below. Wow, I did not deliver that well. Also, back to gaming topics. I am back streaming on Twitch. Well, remained on Twitch. I took one night off this week. Hearthstone, Cobalt, and Catacombs came out. I've been playing a lot of dungeon runs there, so be sure to check that out at twitch.tv/KaleRien. I also have my thoughts on Twitter, including some hubbub about Patreon over at KaleRien, link down in the down there part. And lastly, I do have a blog as well for gaming, mostly WoW and MMO thoughts, and that is located at kalerien.wordpress.com. So thank you so much for watching. Be back tomorrow with another video. And until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.